All right, so tonight we're going to talk about a corrupt priesthood. What can a corrupt priesthood do to a nation? So let's get into this. Before we do that, we'll do our Hebrew nugget. Comes from the Jewish Encyclopedia. It's an article on the Yahweh family. Okay. The Yahweh family is a Portuguese family of the Middle Ages, members of which were prominent in Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Turkey. All right. Certain individuals of the family bore the additional cognomen Negro, which reference to the Moors from whom several of their estates had been obtained. The more prominent members of the family are as follows. So I just included a couple of people in the family line with the name Negro in there, identifying, what they look like. And, they can trace, they trace their lineage all the way back to King David. So it's a royal family, the Yahweh family. It's in the Jewish Encyclopedia. So you can go there and look at all of the members of that family, read up history on each one of them. They're very, very prominent. David ben Yahya, Negro ben Gedalia. You say a prominent figure during the war between the kings of Castile and Portugal. By divulging a secret, he succeeded in frustrating the plot of Queen Leonor to murder her son-in-law, and as a reward, he was appointed chief rabbi of Castile, while King King John of Portugal disposed of his estate in that country. At the time of his death, which occurred at Toledo in October 1385, Toledo was in Spain, he held up the post of Maxarif for King Ferdinand of Castile. His tombstone has been preserved. Then Judah ben Yahya, Negro ben David, he was also born in Toledo, it's in Spain, in the middle of the 14th century, together with his brother Solomon. He immigrated to Portugal in the year of terror, 1391. Judah was employed for a long time in the service of Queen Philippa, the consort of John I, and he had also considerable influence with the king. So when Vicente Ferrer asked permission to carry on a propaganda against the Jews in Portugal, the king, at the instigation of Judah, informed him that his request would be granted on condition he place a red-hot crown upon his head. Judah was one of the most prominent poets of his time and wrote several elegies deploring the unhappy fate of his Spanish brethren. Among these poems may be mentioned an elegy beginning with the words and written in continuous rhyme, one beginning with the words, an elegy on the persecutions of 1319 in Seville, Andalusia, Castile, Province, and Aragon. So he has a lot of history there. So check this out. It's a good resource to take you on another road when you begin to study the Negro inhabitants of Spain and how the Yahya, famous family Yahya, put the word Negro in their name to distinguish them from the others. All right. So let's go into this corrupt priesthood. Now, in 1 Samuel, we run into this family at the beginning, and it includes a woman named Hannah. Her name is interpreted as grace. So that's important. All right, so verse 1, now there was a certain man, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that word, of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jerham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephrathite. And he had two wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto Yahweh of hosts in Shiloh. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas, the priests of Yahweh, were there. All right, so remember those names. Eli, his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas. The priests of Yahweh were there. And when the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters portions. All right. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah. But Yahweh had shut up her womb, and her adversary who provoked her sore for to make her fret, because Yahweh had shut up her womb. And as he did so year by year, when she went up to the house of Yahweh, so she provoked her. Therefore, she wept and did not eat. So here's his situation. So Elkanah has two wives, Peninnah and Hannah. And Peninnah is bearing children for Elkanah. But Elkanah really had, this extra love for Hannah. It was something about Hannah that it just drew him in. But she couldn't have any children at that particular point. And so Hannah was really upset about this, and of course Peninnah didn't give her any slack. She gave her a hard time because she couldn't have any kids. So every time they went up to worship or whatever, she let her know that she didn't have any kids. So this was tough on her. So verse 8 said, then said Elkanah, her husband, to her, Hannah, why weepest thou? And why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am I not better to thee than 10 sons? So Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, after they had drunk. Now Eli the priest sat up on a seat by a post of the temple of Yahweh. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed unto Yahweh and wept sore. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man child, then I will give him unto Yahweh all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. And it came to pass, as she continued praying unto Yahweh, that Eli marked her mouth. Now Hannah, she spake in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she had been drunken. All right, so here's Hannah. She's pouring out her heart to the Most High. And we can see her heart because she's saying, I want to be able to produce fruit for my husband and mostly for you. And if you will allow this thing to happen for me, I'm going to make sure that you get all the glory, that everything comes back to you. And I'm going to dedicate my child that you give me back to you. All right, so this tells us Hannah's heart toward the Most High and her heart toward her husband. The desire to bear fruit, to be fruitful for her husband and mostly for the Most High. So this is a lesson that we all have to begin to translate into the spirit, because the fruit of the womb in the Old Testament is the same, or it's pointing to the fruit of the spirit in the New Testament. Our desire to be intimate and to bear fruit with our Elohim. All right. So think about that as you go. So she had this sincere desire. And you can tell what her sincere desire is because of what she's going to do with what the Most High gives her. This gives everything away. And you're going to see it even in greater extent as we move along when we begin to talk about the priesthood. All right, so Eli asked her how long she had been drunken because, he misinterpreted the situation. And you have to understand this priesthood going on right now, they're gonna misinterpret a lot of things. And so he said, put away that wine from thee. And Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before Yahweh. All right, he said, count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the Elohim of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. And she said, let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat. Her countenance was no more. And they rose up in the early morning and worshiped before Yahweh and returned and came to their house to Ramah. Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and Yahweh remembered her. Wherefore it came to pass when the time was come about, after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked him of Yahweh. So now she receives from Yahweh. She poured out her heart to him. She understood by her name, grace, that it was all by grace. And now she is happy that she is able to give something back to the God who gave her something. She can express herself, and now she's going to be fruitful with not only her husband, but with her Elohim. All right, so when we move forward, we see something else going on here. All right, so now we've got Hannah whose heart is toward the Most High, who wants to be fruitful toward the Most High. And now you got a priesthood over here that is corrupt. All right. So when we look at Eli and his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, you're going to see what I'm talking about. It says, so the sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were worthless, dishonorable, unprincipled men. They did not know nor respect Yahweh and the custom of the priest with the sacrifices of the people. So when any man was offering a sacrifice, the priest servant would come while the meat was boiling with a three-pronged meat hook fork in his hand, and then he would thrust it, in the kettle or the cauldron or the pot. Everything that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did in Shiloh to all the sacrifices of the Israelites who came there. Also, before they burned or offered the fat, the priest's servant would come and say to the men who was sacrificing, give the priest meat to roast, since he would not accept boiled meat from you, only raw. If the man said to him, certainly they are to burn or offer the fat first, then you may take as much as you want. Then the priest servant would say, no, you shall give it to me now, or I would take it by force. So the sin of the two young men, Hophni and Phinehas, was very great before Yahweh, for the men treated the offering of the Most High or Yahweh disrespectfully. All right, so it was a lot going on in there. So I'm gonna see if I can explain just a little bit. Because when we talk about the fat, that they demanded the fat for themselves, in Leviticus 3:16, it said that the fat was always supposed to go to Yahweh. The fat belonged to Yahweh. So they were taking the fat for themselves. Not only were they taking the fat for themselves, they were also eating some of the eating some of the meat raw. It's just, with the blood and all that in it. All right. So this was just a no-no. This was just something that had been forbidden from the beginning of the giving of the law. So it's the base upon how the offering was being given. This was a peace offering. So the peace offerings were to be communal meals between Elohim and his people, celebrations of blessing and fellowship, in which Elohim, the priest, the offerer, and the offerer's family each ate a designated portion of the animal. So the first step in the procedure was for the offerer to bring the live animal to the bronze altar at the doorway of the tabernacle. So you kind of see this happen. To lay his hands on his head and to slay it. The priest who received the animal would then sprinkle some of the animal's blood around the altar. And then Yahweh's portion, which was consisted of the kidney and the lobe of the liver, along with the fat that covered the innermost parts of the animals, was offered up in fire to Elohim. Then the priest received his designated portion of the offering, and the offerer took his portion. The offerer was to cook and eat his portion of the peace offering within 1 to 2 days after the animal was presented to the priest as a sacrifice at the bronze altar. That's how it was supposed to go. But as you can see, it wasn't going that way. The sons were they were going in there while people were trying to cook the meat. They were dipping their prongs in the meat, taking it out, wanting it raw, eating it with the blood, all this type of stuff, taking the fat, which was supposed to be Yahweh. They just had no respect for the sacrifice that Yahweh had set up. All right. So then it says that Eli rebukes his son. Now, Eli was very old, and he heard about everything his sons were doing to all the people of Israel and how they were lying with the women who served at the entrance to the tent of the meeting. Now, this is another level that's going on. Not only did they have no regard for the sacrifice that was being made, and they just did what they wanted in reference to the sacrifice, they were also running game at the entrance of the tent with the women. All right, so they were sleeping with the women as they served at the tent of the meeting. All right. So, I think we can see images of what's going on today where really members of the so-called church really don't have respect for the sacrifice of Yeshua. And it's all about what they can get and how they're fattening themselves up with the things that the people are bringing, and the people are trying to get to Yah, but the corrupt priesthood is in the way. All right, so it said, now Eli said to them, why do you do such things? The evil things that I hear from all these people. He said, no, my sons, for the report that I keep hearing from the passerbys among Yahweh's people is not good. If one man does wrong and sins against another, Elohim will intercede and arbitrate for him. But if a man does wrong to Yahweh, who can intercede for him? But they would not listen to their father, for it was Yahweh's will to put them to death. But the boy Samuel continued to grow in stature and in favor, both with Yahweh and with men. All right. It said, then a man of Elohim, a prophet, came to Eli and said to him, thus says Yahweh, did I not plainly reveal myself to the house of your father, ancestors, when they were in Egypt in bondage to Pharaoh's house? Moreover, I selected him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, talking about Levi, to go up to my altar, to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me. And from then on, I gave to the house of your father all the fire offerings of the sons of Israel. Why then do you kick at or despise my sacrifice and my offering, which I commanded in my dwelling place, and honor your sons more than me? So this is how y'all was looking at you. You're honoring your sons more than me by fattening yourselves with the choicest part of every offering of my people Israel. Therefore, Yahweh Elohim of Israel declares, I did indeed say that your house and that of Aaron your father will walk in priestly service before me forever. But now Yahweh declares, for be it from me. For those who honor me, I will honor, and those who despise me will be insignificant and contemptible. So just refresh what was going on here. The two sons of Eli would send their services to the homes of the offerers who were cooking their portion of the offerings. They knew exactly who the offerers were because they would have presented the animals at the bronze altar within the previous 2 days. And the priest servants would take a fork and grab from the pot whatever portion they wanted. It was a gross violation of Elohim's explicit design for the offerings. So because the priest portion and the offerer's portions were different parts of the animal, even if we assume that the offerer took responsibility during this period to prepare the priest's portions of the peace offerings, the sins of Hophni and Phinehas was that they were thrusting a big fork into the pot and taking for the priest all that the fork brought up. They weren't even trying to be equitable. So in other words, they were indiscriminately stealing the offerer's portion along with their own. So the most serious violation by Hophni and Phinehas was that they were also demanding that the offerer give them uncooked raw portions of meat for the sacrifices that included the fat portion designated only to Elohim. So even when the offerer reminded them of this, they persisted anyway. So for any man to consume the fat portions of any animal or the blood was punishable by death. And so this is why when the prophet came to Eli, he said, you are loving your sons more than me, because he was supposed to put them to death. I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about last week when they offered up strange fire. And the fire from the Most High came and devoured the two sons of Aaron, because they offered strange fire. They died right there. Eli was responsible for, instead of allowing the priesthood of Yah to be corrupted, he was supposed to go ahead and destroy his sons to protect the priesthood. Because essentially they were depriving the people of Elohim of their portions of the peace offering, but it was not enough. They were depriving Elohim of his portion. So it was hindering the relationship that Yahweh was trying to have with his people. And you read on in there in 1 Samuel, it talks about that the people hated going giving sacrifice because of these men. They hated it. They despised what was supposed to be moments of grace and mercy and taking the sacrifice, acknowledging that Yahweh had made a way for the people to have relationship with him, that his grace was sufficient, and all these things, they had turned the grace of the Most High into their own profit. They essentially put themselves in the place of God and said, I'm more important to you than him. It just corrupted the priesthood. We see it. It's today. We see it today. All right, and so as a result of this, all right, in 1 Samuel 3, it said, and the child Samuel ministered unto Yahweh before Eli, and the word of Yahweh was precious in those days, and there was no open vision. And it came to pass at that time when Eli was laid down in his place and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. And this is a spiritual principle, because he refused to get rid of the things that were corrupting the house. His own vision was hindered. He couldn't see. And so he Most High is using a physical description of a spiritual principle he could not see. So then he moves on into the temple in the 3rd verse and shows us it's a spiritual principle and said, the lamp of Elohim went out in the temple where the ark of Elohim was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. So this lampstand that was supposed to burn continually in the temple went out. And so now the path, Yah is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my, that whole thing is out for this priesthood. The light has gone out. All right. So then, we see it, even in the modern day church. And we see all these things happening. The light is out, but everybody's still going through the motions as if Yah is with us or with them. All right. And we continue to do the things that are against him. All right, so what happens? Everybody going through the motions, they still had the Ark of the Covenant, so what did they do? So in chapter 4, it said, and the word of Samuel came to all Israel, and Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel. When they joined battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines, and they slew of the array in the field about 4,000 men. So Israel was going to battle, and they were getting their butts whooped. All right. So this is what they decided to do. They said, well, go get the ark. All right. Go get the ark and bring it to the war. The ark, that'll do it for us. All right, so it said the people sent to Shiloh that they might bring from thence the ark of the covenant of Yahweh of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubims, and the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas were there with the ark of the covenant of Elohim. Now remember, when we studied the ark of the covenant, what was it, the ark of the covenant? He said, how are you going to meet me at the ark? What's special about meeting me at the ark? And what's so special about meeting him at the ark? Because there's a mercy seat on top of the Ark of the Covenant. And so basically when you meet with the Most High, you have to meet him at mercy. And in order to meet him at mercy, you had to understood the sacrifice that had taken place and the blood that was sprinkled on top of that mercy seat. But Eli and his 2 sons did not adhere properly to the sacrifice. If you don't adhere properly to the sacrifice of grace and mercy, how can then you go hold up the ark, which is the meeting place of grace and mercy, and go to warfare? All right, so they go, they get the ark. They're using it as a good luck charm, I guess. And so it said, when the ark of the covenant of Yahweh came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, what meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews? And they understood that the ark of Yahweh was come unto the camp. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, Elohim is coming to the camp. And they said, woe unto us, for there has not been such a thing hitherto. Woe unto us, who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and quit yourself like men, O you Philistines, that you be not servants unto Hebrews as they have been to you. Quit yourselves like men and fight. He said, well, we're going to die, but Gird yourself up like a man, die like a man. They saw the ark. It said, and the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled every man in his tent, and there was a very great slaughter, for there was fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. And the ark of Elohim was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. This is huge, y'all. I mean, these are the high priest's sons. They go out, they hold up the Ark of the Covenant, right? They represent the Most High, right? Even though they hadn't adhered to him, they're supposed to represent him. And the people follow them because they look holy, right? And they're out in the field, and they die. Not only do they die, but the ark, which represents Yah, is taken. So this is huge. This is a huge deal to have your God taken from you. It's huge. All right, so it said a man named Benjamin came out of the army. He came to Shiloh the same day, and he had rent his clothes because he was distraught. He sprinkled dust up on his head. And he came to Eli, the high priest, and it said, Eli sat up on the seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of Elohim, because he knew. And he said, when the man came into the city and told it, all the city cried out. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, what meaneth the noise of this tumult? Why all this noise? And the man came in hastily and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim, that he could not see. And the man said to Eli, I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. He said, what is there done, my son? And the messenger answered and said, Israel is fled before the Philistines. And there had been also a great slaughter among the people. And thy two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead. And the ark of Elohim is taken. Wait a minute. So now it's been a great slaughter, 30,000 people. Two sons dead. And then now the ark, which represents Yah, is gone. That's a big price to pay. That could have been prevented if he had stood the way he was supposed to stand. And it came to pass, when he had made a mention of the ark of the Elohim, that he fell from off to seek backwards by the sides of the gate, and his neck brake, and he died, for he was an old man, and he was heavy. And he had judged Israel 40 years. I want you to get that. And he was heavy. Why was he so heavy? Because they ate the Lord's portion. He was fat on what was supposed to have been Yah. He didn't give it to Yah like he was supposed to. He was fat. And his fatness, the weight of him holding on to what was supposed to be Yah, is what killed him. And he fell off and broke his neck. And about the time of her death, the woman, I'm back up, and his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings that the ark of Elohim was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself in travail, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the woman that stood by her said unto her, fear not, for thou hast borne a son. But she answered, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of Elohim was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of Elohim is taken. This is huge. Because they would not adhere to the sacrifices in the manner that the Most High had contended for them to. And these offerings were set up in a manner to prefigure the sacrifice that his son was going to make. And they did not adhere to those things. So we're going to talk about how then will the Most High handle the so-called church? How will he handle those things if we don't take advantage or utilize the sacrifice that he gave us in the manner that we should? What if we're getting fat off that which is supposed to be given to the Most High? All right, let's move on. Got one more point I want to make. All right, so this is a foreshadowing of what happened to us when Yah left us. And, you know, after the temple was burnt down and all that stuff, that, you know, you remember we read those books where it talks about that you could, you know, many scholars wrote where they, you know, there was witnesses that saw the armies of heaven leave the temple. We talked about that before when the Romans came in. And so Yah left us. He left us because he had given us 40 years to repent and we didn't. All right, so then the ark went into somebody else's house. Let's look at this. So in 1 Samuel 5, it said, the Philistines took the ark of Elohim and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. And when the Philistines took the ark of Elohim, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. Oh, wait a minute. So they took what represents Yah and put him in a whole nother house, which was built for Dagon, a whole nother god, and set it up by Dagon. Okay, so, and when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of Yahweh, and they took Dagon, and they set him up in his place again. So they trying to figure out what in the world happened. Our God has fallen. So they set him back up again. And when they arose early on the morning, the next day, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of Yahweh. And then this time the head of Dagon and both the palm of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. Therefore, neither the priests of Dagon nor any that come into Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. But the hand of Yahweh was heavy upon them at Ashdod. He destroyed them and smote them with emerods, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. All right, so they mixed in Yahweh with the other god, Dagon. And judgment began to come up on them because they were mixing. You know, because Yah is Yah, and then Dagon is Dagon. He said, no, I'm not sharing this space with anybody. So when the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, the ark of the God of Israel shall not abide with us, for his hand is sore upon us and upon Dagon our God. So they knew what was happening. And so they sent and gathered the lords of the Philistines unto them and said, what shall we do with the ark of the Elohim of Israel? And they answered, let the ark of the Elohim of Israel be carried about unto Gath. They carried the ark of the Elohim of Israel about thither. And it was so. After they carried about, the hand of Yahweh was against the city with a great destruction. And he smote the men of the city, both small and great. And they had emerods in their secret parts. So he was wreaking havoc. So they were trying to get rid of the ark. All right, and it says, so they went and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, send away the ark of the Elohim of Israel and let it go to his own place. It may slay us not and our people, for there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city, and the hand of Elohim was very heavy there. And the men that died not were smitten with the emerods, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. So you see judgment coming up on the Philistines because they were trying to mix their beliefs and pay homage to their gods along with Yahweh. And Yahweh said, nope, doesn't work like that. I don't belong to you like that. So this is a image of Dagon. And so here you see a stone laver from Assyria, which is now in the Pergamum Museum in Berlin. Carved on its side are depictions of the pagan priests that appear to be half sunfish and half men that are sprinkling holy water. So I want you to see the half sunfish, half men, and I want you to see the sprinkling of the holy water. So in this picture on the right, it says, here's a similar depiction of a pagan priest wearing a sunfish, the head with open mouth, worn as a meter, and the rest of the fish forming a cloak. These are both illustrations of Dagon, which was the god of Babylon and Philistine, as mentioned several times in scripture. So I want you to see how he's holding his hand. I want you to see the open meter at the top. I want you to see all that. I want you to see what the little thing that he's holding in his hand, all those things there. I want you to see Dagon. I want you to see who they were trying to mix Yahweh with. All right. Then I want you to see the goddess again. She got about Queen Mother again. She shows up again. This time they call her Sybil. All right, she has a different name, Sybil, but she's got this same meter on the head. And you know, she was worshiping Rome, also called the Magna Mater, or the Great Queen Mother Goddess, which evolved into Catholic Mariology. The priesthood of Sybil was composed of castrated males. This is why the men in the Catholic Church are celibate, which parallels celibate priesthood of Catholicism. The Basilica of St. Peter's, according to some, stands upon the former site of Sybil's main temple in Rome. The ruins of another temple to Sybil or Magna Mater can still be seen today in Rome on Palatine Hill. So I want you to look at the garments here. I want you to look at his hand. I want you to look at the instrument. I want you to see it on this woman, Sybil, who's riding a beast. Should remind you of some scriptures in the book of Revelations where this woman riding a great beast. And then I want you to look at this. All right. So there's another system out there that's trying to mix Yahweh with Dagon. And so, you know, and the reason that they have this authority now is because Israel had a corrupt priesthood itself. And because Israel's priesthood was corrupt and our system became corrupt in our own hearts, and we began to do the things against Yah, we didn't, you know, adhere to the sacrifices. We were, you know, he had to kick, you know, Yeshua had to kick him out of the temple 3 times during his ministry. That's recorded anyway, because we didn't pay attention to the sacrifices. And then when the ultimate sacrifice was made, definitely didn't pay attention to him, gave 40 years before he destroyed the temple. And then the ark went to the Roman Catholic Church. And they got him mixed in with Dagon. So what do you think is going to happen to the church that mixes the Most High with Dagon? All right. Exodus 12, it says, one law shall be to him that is homeborn unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. In other words, you know, the rules are the same. All right. So in Leviticus 24:22, ye shall have one man of law as well for the strangers as for one of your own country, for I am Yahweh your Elohim. Numbers 15, he said, one ordinance shall be both for you of the congregation and also for the stranger that sojourns with you, an ordinance forever in your generation, that ye are, so shall the stranger be before Yahweh. One law and one manner shall be for you and for the stranger that sojourns with you. So there is no 2 systems. There's one system. And there's one who's going to judge against the system. All right. Isaiah 42:8, I am Yahweh, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise the graven image. Isaiah 48:11, for mine own sake, even for mine own sake will I do it. For how should my name be polluted? And I will not give my glory unto another. It's not another worship system. It's not a system that you can ignore and get rid of Passover. It's not a system that you can ignore and get rid of first fruit. It's not a system that you can ignore and forget about the sacrifice. It's not a system that somebody can have in place of Yeshua. It's not a system. He's not going to share his glory with anybody. Go back to what we were talking about. Thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh thy Elohim in vain, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless to take his name in vain. So we talked about that. All right, so I'll end that and we'll open it up for discussion. Do you think that Yah is going to share his glory with anybody. Dante, Sheree.
Shalom, Elder.
Shalom.
Praying for your strength, and sorry to hear about the loss of one.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, to answer your question, all right. So I'm going to share something I saw. Actually, I think it was last night. So a very prominent leader in a big mega church, you probably know if I say their name, but just for the sake of this, stated that the Most High is his business partner. All right. And he said, basically, he equated to their relationship being transactional and based on money. So listening to your message or the message tonight, and the two priests that were making the transactional things going on in the temple with the women and the fat and the money and the fork using all that. So judgment is going to happen. You know, that's my answer. Judgment is going to happen upon the churches that are these things. And so when I was listening to your message, so many things are coming to mind about what we see and what's going on present day in the local churches, and how everything almost eventually circles back around to money. All right. So if it's transactional, and if the churches are not seeking and showing how to find Yahweh in the scriptures and how to find Yeshua in the scriptures, then what they are in essence doing is practicing what these mixtures, the mixing of Dagon and everything else that the Catholic Church has influenced into all, if not most of the local churches. So judgment. That's the answer, judgment. Now I may have forgot your other question, but sorry.
No, that's good. I think you covered it. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, and that's why, if we go back to the book of Revelation and he's talking to the churches, that's essentially what he's saying. Get rid of these things out of your thought process and out of your heart. The sacrifice has been made. I want you to focus on the main thing, keeping the main thing the main thing. That's really what he's saying. You know, and we don't adhere to the sacrifice that has been made like we should. You know, so even when Hannah went to dedicate her son after she had weaned him, and she went to dedicate her son, the scriptures say that she sacrificed before even giving him over, acknowledging that it was by the grace and mercy of the Most High that she was even able to give her son to him. Yeah, that something had to die in her stead to give her the ability to give him a gift that he would accept. That's so powerful. So everything that she walked in was the grace and mercy of the Most High. Her name meant grace. And everybody else was taking advantage of the sacrifice. All right, Chanel.
Yeah, I was thinking about Exodus. In the book of Exodus, he clearly says in chapter 34:14, for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is a jealous God. So he's been saying this from the beginning, and he clearly showed that in Exodus as well.
Yeah, he's been saying it from the beginning. And because all of this false doctrine is in the church, it's clouding the vision. You know, and that's what, Yeshua was trying to tell us. He said, man, the traditions, all these traditions are making the word where it's not even effective. It won't work. My word won't work. And it's causing men to walk in blindness. So, all right, anybody else? All right, Marcus.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How you doing, Elder?
I'm all right. You?
I'm good. I kind of want to just also kind of sort of piggyback off of what Chanel just said. I think in Isaiah 42, it says that I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. So I kind of feel like that kind of will fit the situation we're talking about.
Exactly. He's just not going to share his glory with anybody in any way, in any form. You know, so when he says he did it all, he fulfilled the whole of the law, he did it. And he's not going to share that with me. You know, he's not going to come along and say, well, in order for your salvation to be secure, you've got to do something. When he said, I did it all you got to do is walk in what I gave you. He's only going to accept the approved sacrifice. We see it all through the Old Testament. The approved sacrifice is the only thing he's going to accept in the manner that he's accepting it in the heart that it's supposed to be accepted in. That's the only way he's accepting it.
This lesson is really, really good, at least to me. And the reason why I say that is, just think about how many people are in our local churches or in all these local churches who have a lot of spirit but no truth. Think about how many people are, they're learning these ritualistic behaviors and routines and mannerisms, and they know as soon as a certain sound happens, they know how to respond physically. But when it comes down to sitting across the table from them or sitting face to face with them to have a discussion about the Most High, all they can give you is, a lot of folks, all they give you is just what the preacher or pastor said in the mic. They don't know how to have a deeper conversation that actually talks about the Most High and dives into the deepness of the Most High. A lot of what we see here is the person behind the mic getting fat from the fat, and then the people in the congregation starving spiritually. I mean, just in knowledge, And so, the scripture tells us that my people perish for lack of knowledge, and those who reject knowledge, the Most High will reject. So, it's starting to come to the picture is starting to become, a lot more brighter for me, where eventually we're going to start seeing the fruit of the wheat and the no fruit from the tare. And so it's just, it's just really starting to hit home, with how much of this has spread across the entire and across all the denominations that we know of and have been partaking in, and how, we have so much that the church is going to have to answer for. And even when you know someone that has the microphone every Sunday and you try to reach out to them, brother or sister to sister, or however you do, and they still reject it and they still dismiss you because it doesn't fit the mixing that they're used to. So yeah, there's the coming out of her is so important today, because you have so many who refuse to.
Yeah, and somebody's got to go first. And it's sad, but it's part of the process that has to take place. Some come out early, some don't. But it should reinforce for us the importance of putting Yeshua in the proper perspective. That that he did this great work. And so when we look when he says he fulfilled the law, that's huge. So he's saying there's not one letter, a jot or till that he himself did not fulfill. He did it. Every aspect of it. And so now he's saying, I need you to trust that. So that's why it's easier to study the Old Testament with that in perspective. So now you can look at the offerings and say, well, this represents Yeshua because he fulfilled the law. So you know that each sacrifice represents him. So now you can put it in the proper perspective and say, this is how serious the Most High was about his offerings. So this is really how serious he is about his son and how we should pay tribute to what his son did. How much so is he excited about his son when he was so disciplined about making sure that the picture of his son was adhered to? I hope y'all feel what I'm saying. Here he is, he's got a picture of who his son was in an animal. And he's upset because the animal, which prefigures his son, is disrespected. How much more so is he going to be upset that his son is disrespected? Yeah, this is powerful stuff. This is powerful stuff. And so we have to just pay homage to the one who did it all. The one who was sent to be all the sacrifices, to go from the Alpha or the Aleph to the Tav, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And I'm telling you, when we begin to put him in the proper perspective and keep him in the proper perspective and understand that he said his testimony is the spirit of the prophet. It's all about what he did. Then you can't go wrong with that. But then, we start talking about each other too much and we're getting off base. But it's about him. All right, Al?
The shoulders side for your lost side.
I appreciate it, man. You're kind of breaking up on me.
Okay, can you hear me over there?
A little bit better. Yeah, go ahead and try to get in.
All right. How's it, how I'm sounding? If it's not good, I'll ask it the next go round.
Okay, it's a little better now.
Okay, I was just gonna ask about Samuel's sons. Like, have you ever had any thoughts about how did that kind of situation reoccur like that? And then it kind of made me chuckle a little bit thinking about pastors' kids. But if you ever had any thoughts on how Samuel's son ended up walking that same path as Eli's?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And it's kind of almost a test, of sorts, because Yeshua gives us that same challenge, and he said, anybody who loves his mother, his father, his brothers and sisters, his children, whatever, more than me is not worthy of me. All right. So you see, we don't always know how our children are gonna turn out. We raise them the best way we can, and or whatever, and things happen. So but at the same time, we can't choose them over the Most High. That's the key. So you see Eli, and it could have been his parenting skills. I have no idea. But something happened there to where his sons were just they were corrupt. And instead of him loving Yah more than he loved his sons and went ahead and just took care of business, he allowed them to corrupt everybody else around him. And so he should have handled that. Had he handled that, then it wouldn't have got to the place that it was supposed to. So it was a test for him that he loved his sons more than he loved Yah. And then when Samuel came around, his two sons it was similar in the sense that the people saw how corrupt Samuel's sons was. But Samuel's sons were not part of the priesthood. They were not assigned to the priesthood, and they were not assigned to be prophets. It's the people's response to that they were like, listen, when you die, if we don't want to have to deal with your two sons, we want a king. You see what I'm saying? So this was a test that the people decided they wanted a king just like everybody else, and that was really a test for the people. And Samuel was evidence that if you follow Yah the way you're supposed to, everything will work all right. And so that's why Yah told Samuel, listen, they didn't just reject you, they rejected me. We're gonna give him a king, but let him know what this king's gonna do to him. You know, and so you know, everybody was tested. The people were tested as to their heart, even when they had a good prophet. Eli was tested because he chose his sons over God, and you know, everybody was tested, and everybody failed. Hope that makes sense.
No, it does, and I appreciate that insight. I always just found that really fascinating. Like I would think, you know, Samuel would have seen that, and it just makes me think. So again, appreciate that thought.
Yeah, I realize what you're saying about Samuel, but Samuel never deviated. He didn't allow his sons to cause him to walk a different way. He was loyal to the Most High no matter what. You know, even though his sons were, you know, were corrupt. And you know, he didn't really have any parenting skills either, really, because he was raised in there with Eli, and so there was no parenting skills there. So I'm sure he didn't really know what he was doing when he was raising his boys. Not that that's an excuse. He didn't deviate from the will of the Most High either way. All right. Any other questions? All right, Chanel.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. I was thinking about that spirit. What is it, Sybil or Sybil that you were teaching? Oh, Sybil. I was thinking about the castration, right? And thinking about how they're trying to take all of everything away of the Most High. They don't want to leave anything that represents him. So it even related to the image of us. And then that spirit of Sybil, I was thinking about the castration of what I call the Transformers. I would say that. I call them the Transformers. I don't want to say the other name. How they are castrating themselves and then, you know, saying that they're okay like this, and then they're opening up these churches saying, come on in, you can be saved and do that as well, you know, and still live that way. So I was just thinking about that spirit of the castration, because that's what they're doing to their bodies as well, and that's supposed to be our image representing the Most High as well.
Yeah, I hadn't really had to look into that. Yeah, but that's yeah, you had to be the strange doctrine out here. It's going out. All right, Henry.
Yeah, I often ask myself this, but when it comes to the Pharisees, Sadducees, and even the Catholic Church, they know the word better than we do. The question is, why would they continue to go down this path when they know what the outcome is going to be? There has to be something. Is it Yahweh using them to say that I'm going to allow you to do this so then we can become awakened and follow him? Or, you know, in some of the reasons, how do you anticipate why they would continue to do something when they know what the outcome is?
Yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, when you get into the higher hierarchy of that particular institution, you know, they know they're worshiping Lucifer. Yeah, they fool the other people in the lower levels into thinking they're worshiping something else, and they put all these other things in there, but it's to make them still worship Lucifer, but they know who they're worshiping. All right, so in the process of them knowing who they worship, if they can get us to worship another way and worship their God, they've accomplished what they want to accomplish. Because, you know, it goes back to what we were talking about, the doctrine of Balaam, basically. You know, as long as we're mixed in with this other stuff, we have no power. If we have no power, they remain in power. See, this is the nations knew when our Elohim was with us. This is why the Philistines were quaking and shaking, because they knew if our Elohim is with us and we're with him, and this thing is lined out, there's no one that can stand against him. But if they can get us corrupted, we pretty much, you know, destroy ourselves. We have no power. And we serve an Elohim who's not going to accept anything but what he has designed for us to accept. He's not going to do it when our hearts are not toward him. That's why when he goes in Deuteronomy 30 and he Leviticus 26, he said, when you turn back to me with all your heart, y'all, you know what I'm saying? He said, so you repent and you turn away. He said, then, boy, we finna turn this thing upside down. So he's going to keep pushing us and pushing us and pushing us in our doctrine and our attitudes and our hearts until we get to a point in the future to where it's all him. And I forgot where I read it, but it was talking about he's going to wait until all our power is gone as a people, when we're depleted of all our power. We have no other options but him. Then he's going to stand up on our behalf. And that's where he's getting us to. That's where he's pushing us to. All these other things we depend on, he's going to take it all away. That makes sense? All right, Shannon.
Hey, Brother Kendall, how you doing?
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm driving right now, but I still wanted to listen in. I think you asked a question about what happens with the churches that, that's doing idolatry and things like that. I think that they're Ichabod too, like the glory has left them, because just looking at that whole Michael Todd, I think that's his name, Todd, whatever his name is, and that supposedly Easter service that he had, that was ridiculous. Even though it's, fake Easter anyway, but just how they just depraved, just evil, they're not even thinking about the fact that they're in the house of God, supposed to be the house of God.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy, but everybody's blinded by it. Now, you remember we read, I think it's in 2nd Ezra, it may have been Baruch, where he says he's going to raise up the church to draw all the evil people towards it.
Right.
So that's his intent. And you can see it so vividly now. I feel sorry for people who can't see it now. I mean, it's so obvious, because it's like no matter what wrong is pointed out with certain churches, they don't care. They make excuses for every wrong that's presented. I hope y'all can see that. And so it doesn't matter to them that the lie. It's really about power and maintaining the status quo. That's all that matters. And if a person, if the Most High can't make it this obvious, he can make it this obvious, and we can't see it, we are in a bad state. We really are, because it's obvious. All right, Al, you have something?
Just gonna ask about how do you view that white image of Jesus? I think that there's a lot of believers that, especially the older generation, that they do seem like in their heart they want to love the Most High, but they struggle with letting go of that image, and kind of, even if they don't outright defend it, they'll kind of do it subliminally. Like, what are would you consider that image to kind of be a part of the mixing, like Dagon, or how do you view that whole sticky issue?
Yeah, I mean, it is part of the a part of the deception. I think that, from this, just me, the teaching about who he is, comes first, I think, about how to approach him, how to go about, and then he opens up your eyes to see what he looks like. I hope that makes sense. So I don't, especially the older people, that's what we've been bombarded with all our lives. I mean, they threw it at us, and so just because, you know, people can't flip a switch and get the image out of their heads, I'm not gonna, you know, pass a judgment on that. But, you know, it's the seeking part that bothers me. The lack of seeking, the lack of a conviction to say, you know, there's something else to this. That's where the problem is, because he's faithful. He is, man. He is faithful. That when we seek after him, he begins to open up our eyes so we can see these things. That's the problem that I have. It's just the lack of seeking him. If a person is seeking him, I have no doubt that they're going to eventually walk into this truth. It's you got to, if you're seeking him. But it's the lack of seeking him and just the resolve to just stay where we are and not go any further. I just believe what I'm being told, and that's it. That bothers me. I hope that makes sense.
It does. How do you handle that? Could you kind of just leave them, or do you ever open up and engage with folks like that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you know, and that was, you know, a part of the reason why I you know, started doing this. You know, because after a while, you know, I can give you so much information that you just I mean, it's just undeniable. At some point, man, if I show you 100 pictures of the way they drew the Messiah back in the early 1300, 1200, 1400, 1500, go all the way back to, you know, 200 BC and show you stuff. And, you know, if I'm showing you all that, and then we get into historical text where I'm showing you that, you know, there was all this stuff. You've got to come to a crossroads with that information and say, wait a minute, there's something to this. I don't know if I believe, but why were they writing books, you know, in 100 you know, AD, talking about that they thought that the Hebrew people came from Ethiopians, knowing that Ethiopians were black-skinned people? Why were they saying that? I mean, I'm just saying, at some point, something's gonna have to shake you and say, wait a minute, I need to look into this a little bit further. And then, not to mention that's just on the historical perspective. Then you get into the prophetic. And you start showing people scriptures and prophecy and all these things. Like I told a guy who was going back and forth one day, and I said, well, you know, I said, you know, scripture said that the real people can't go back into the land unless they repent. I said, how did they get back in? And he stopped. He said, well, you know, I think they're turning their hearts, you know. And I said, no, that's not what the scripture say. I said, now you got to read scripture. And I said, we're gonna read it. And scripture said that the true people can't go back into the land unless they repent. And then it says that the land is gonna be run over by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles come to the end. I said, that comes to the end around the Antichrist, time of the Antichrist. How did they get back into the land without repentance? When 99% of them said they don't even believe in Yeshua. They don't believe. I said, then Tel Aviv is called the sin capital of the world. And Jerusalem's not far behind. I said, how did they defy the God of Scripture and go back to the land anyway? How did they do that? So even from a prophetic perspective, you know, you start talking to people and pointing things out. Some people are gonna start saying, wait a minute, you got some great points. And some people they're not gonna listen no matter what. I don't worry about it in the sense like I used to. I don't worry about it because It's going back to the attitude that we talked about at the beginning of the lesson. Yah is the one that's going to open up ears. Yah is the one that's going to open up eyes. Yah is going to do that. And when he's ready for them to hear and see, based upon how they respond to him, he'll open up an eye. He'll open up an ear. All I'm doing and required to do is some man got to plant, some got to water, but y'all going to get the increase. I'm just doing my part. And I would suggest y'all quit struggling with folk. You lay out your evidence. You lay it out plainly. Wipe your hand and keep it moving. There's somebody else waiting on you. Some of us spending too much time arguing with the same folks, trying to be the one who wakes up somebody. And it's not you that's going to do it. It's him. I hope that makes sense. We're not the waker-uppers. We're not. We're just the progenitor of information. We put it out there. And we put that word out there, I promise you, based upon his word. He said his word would not come back void. I'm telling you, what we talk about tonight is going to affect somebody. It's going to put a wrinkle in this old earthly kingdom. It's going to shake a foundation somewhere. It's going to go out and do a work. We may not see it right now, but based upon his word, he said his word will not come back void. I don't know who this is going to affect. Maybe somebody down in the deep sects of Africa somewhere. Not my business. All I know, I got to put it out there in the atmosphere and let y'all do what he going to do. That's our job. All right, who is next? Is it Marquise?
Shalom, Mark.
Shalom.
How are you?
Man, better not deserve you.
I'm good, man. Maintaining. The whole thing that you just said, I had two things to say, like 3 weeks ago, so right around, Passover, quote unquote Easter. Everybody was getting on the African nations. I think it was Nigeria or Ghana, one of the two. How they outlawed homosexuality, and freaking in the world, especially America's jaw just dropped. Oh, how could they do this, that, and the other? But at the same time, nobody said anything about Israel in Jerusalem outlawing and incriminating people preaching, teaching, or even talking about Jesus. At the very same time, no press conference, no response by anybody, especially in the United States. And I just found that interesting.
Yeah, it's very,
at one point, yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, like, on one hand, America and the world was going crazy over these alphabet organizations not being treated, quote unquote, equal human rights or whatever. And at the exact same time, that was going on. And then my other statement was when you were saying, like, how it bothers you. And that's kind of like what led me here in, like, the search for truth, because to me, it was like the church now is like going on script. And I had to write it down one time. This is maybe a year ago. So script versus scripture. Like the churches are going by script. They're not going by scripture. And like you said, once you start seeking the stuff, now I don't have a doctrine, I don't have a ministry or a church and stuff like that. If I could find this stuff out, doing studying and doing research and asking the Holy Spirit to guide me into truth and not trying to be deceived, I'm pretty sure people will call themselves pastors, ministers, and prophets can find this out or know it and don't teach it. So it's just a script. They're going by script and not scripture.
Yeah. So. Yeah, man, that's an excellent point. I remember, I guess it was about 20 years ago, when I was teaching in the church. You know, I was talking to different people, you know, and of course I was in a Presbyterian, you know, Cumberland Presbyterian, and there's other Presbyterian types, and then there was friends in Missionary Baptists, other Primitive Baptists, you know, you had all of these different organizations, you know, and I got to talking to different people from each one of these organizations, and I found it odd that we were all teaching out of the same scriptures every week. Because they would ask, what y'all teach on? And I was like, well, yeah, that's what they had in Sunday school. And come to find out, no matter what organization you went to, they were ordering the books from the same people. And they had different covers on them. And but they were all had the script. That's when you said script. They all had the same script. And so, man, I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so, you know, I went and they had asked me to teach another class, and I said, well, y'all, we need to change this up. I said, you know, we need to really just start teaching through the scripts, because we just regurgitating the same stuff. And they told me, well, you know, the teachers, they got the authority to teach what they want. They don't have to go by the book. That's all I need to hear.
It kind of reminds me of when we were in slavery, and they would have somebody preach, you know, but the overseer, the masters, or would be standing there, and they would have to preach obedience. They would have to be preach slaves or servants, be good to your masters and obey them, and you'll get yours in the sweet by and by. If they preach anything other than that, if they preach anything like that, even the Bible, when it was first presented in the United States, they have it in some library in Washington, D.C., I believe. It was called the Negro Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It had, like, Exodus wasn't in it. They had a couple of books that wasn't in it, and they gave it to the slaves because they didn't want to learn about rebellion, in a sense, and deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
So if they didn't preach, you know, humility or servitude or this, that, and the other, or get yours in the sweet by and by, they would get pretty much beat. So.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to Nat Turner, you know. So I'll let, you know, it just, they had it prescribed, you know, and and some people call it the slave Bible. Yeah, they had ripped a whole lot of stuff out of it. Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, Terry.
Shalom, everyone. Shalom, Elder.
Shalom.
I hope everyone is doing well this evening. What you said a few moments ago was an answer to prayer. I just had a conversation with Camille earlier this week. Just seeing everything that is going on in this world and seeing, you know, just get worse and worse. I've been in the truth for the 3 years and have been kind of, you know, gun shy, if you will, about sharing it, because every time I attempt, I just get shot down, you know. And this last week, I was attempting to share with my best friend and one of her friends, and found myself babbling and rambling, and ended up talking about, you know, Christmas and, you know, all the holidays, you know, not being pagan holidays, and only to hear the response of, well, I think it's precious when anyone's birth is precious and should be celebrated. So it just, you know, went over her head. And so we were, you know, you had made a comment last week about when you woke up, you were by yourself. And I just was wondering, wonder what that was like. And so with that said, I was just wondering, well, you kind of already answered the question, but if you want to elaborate on it more, when you did wake up by yourself, how was it when you first tried to share? I mean, apparently now you've got people subscribing to your channel and so forth, but how was that for you? And how did you stay encouraged?
Well, I had to give all the honor and glory to the Most High on that, because He had prepared me for that. And I say that because I was already teaching things that were outside of the norm. So I was already there anyway, you know. you know, you're talking to somebody who's writing a book talking about Jesus is a worm. So I was already out there, you know what I'm saying? I was kind of I'm already out on the I'm on a limb, you know, already. So but anyway, yeah, so I was teaching a lot of the Hebrew perspectives anyway. And people, when I will go teach, people just looking at a lot. I've never heard that before. They said it makes sense, but I've never heard that before. So I had ran into that quite a bit. So I was getting kind of used to that. So when I woke up to who we were as a people, it was kind of the same experience. But I did sense that this was a stronger spirit. You know, it was a stronger rebuttal against this. And so, but the same process that he had given me with the other stuff, I just took that, you know, and I would share it with who he led me to share it with. And, you know, a few of my friends were open to it, and they were like, man, I was thinking the same thing. And, you know, some people just, you know, it just went straight over the head. So he started giving me people to talk to about it, you know, not long after I, you know, woke up to it. And so I guess I woke up, I'm thinking it may have been in 212, 13. It was in between 212, 13, 14, somewhere in there. And so I was just, man, I got hungry, and I just started just trying to find all the evidence that I could. And then at the end of 2016, that's when I really put the presentation together for the Negroland. And then we presented it during that 17 in that Black History Month. So yeah, it was a journey. But even my pastor, at the time when I did the Negroland series, he said, well, he said, I gotta tell you, this is bigger than this place. So he told me that. He said it's too big for this place. It's gotta go somewhere else. And yeah, so it's, you know, you get used to it. Most High is faithful. He prepares you on the journey. He'll give you a little taste of this, a little taste of that, because you're going to get rejected, but you're also going to get accepted too. And
I think for me, just personally, I had to look inward and say, well, that's your, you know, if it hurts, maybe it's your pride, because they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting Yahuwah. And, but you know, in your mind, you have to kind of get used to that, you know, you have to get adjusted to that. But I'm grateful for what when you said, I don't know, I think you were talking to Al, but because I had decided that I'm just going to share and what you said about planting the seed, because what I was thinking, I have so many people in my family and friends that I don't want them to ever say, how come you didn't tell me? Because you were afraid, because you thought, you know, you already had a preconceived notion of what I was going to say. So I decided, and I'm glad that you just confirmed that I'm just going to share, plant that seed, and whatever happens after that is up to the Most High.
And you'll learn, and you'll start. You know, I'm still learning too. I'm not trying to say I got it all. I'm just saying we learn as we go along. I mean, just like you know, I got close family members that I was close to that still hadn't completely bought in yet. But every once in a while, I might send them a short or whatever, and they'd be like, "Wow, where'd you find that information, or where'd you get that information?" And I don't bother them anymore. I just send them the information, and you know, these are the, you know, books from 1500s talking about this stuff, and I leave it alone. And then maybe a month or two down the road, I might send another one. And then one of my aunts sent me a happy Easter. I sent her the video on Easter and Passover. Yeah, you sent me something, send you something, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, it just, you know, we just go like that, you know? So you feel good enough to send me Easter, I feel I'm gonna send you something too, you know? So, but you just play it by ear and don't let it burden you down, you know? You know, shake it off, move on, because your relationship with the Most High is the main thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. All right, who was next? I think, Dante, were you next?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yes, sir. That was funny. I do the same thing, Elder. They send me something, and now I send them something, but they sent me. had a similar the happy Easter stuff, and so I sent them something pointing towards Yahweh and Passover. Not saying Easter, no, been there, done that. It don't work. But what I wanted to say is just how awesome the Most High is, and when He awakens us and He pulls us out of the traditions and the churches and all that, and then out of her, He what has been quite surprising for me is who is open to hear what the truth is versus who isn't.
Mhm.
The people that have kind of shocked me, that have actually been very interested in the truth, are the ones that I expect to have kind of a long drawn out back and forth argument with.
Yeah.
Versus the ones that I thought would be open to it because of how much church they've had. They're the ones who were rejecting and like, okay. And they won't say anything. They won't ask, they won't engage, they won't they won't even say things like, well, will you share where you learn that from, or where what are you reading now? It's not even that. It's not even a little smidgen of interest being shown. So I had a good friend of mine, back in the day. He was the crunk friend. That's a word we used back in college. He was always 100 miles an hour with everything. He was in the band back when we went to A&M. But he told me the other day, he said, we were sitting out back talking about some things going on. But he said, my mother is reading Enoch. I said, oh, for real? He said, yeah. He said, you know why? I said, no. He said, because something you said to me. I said, for real? I said, okay. So I was like, all praise to the Most High. I just, whenever the opportunity opens, I go where Yah leads me. And it may not be a long thing that I say, maybe something short and sweet, but just be in the position to where Yah can, and this is for everybody, just be in a position to where Yah can use you, and just tell the truth. Elder Shoulders, you said this a while back, just start with the truth.
Absolutely, man. That's a great testimony, because it's true with me too. It's the people that I'm just knowing because of their depth in this thing religiously, they're gonna receive this. Man, they're the main one that reject it. And the people that you don't expect to receive it, man, they all about it, It's like, wow, so yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You never know. You just never know. You just share and move on.
That's it. Just share and move on.
I'm going to share a little bit. Hey, yo, I missed the lesson. I'm so sorry. My life is different now. So sometimes I'll be here and sometimes I won't. But we resigned, officially from the ministry we were a part of. I told Dante, I said, oh Lord, now they're going to have to deal with us as their crazy Hebrew friends. Now we have no reason to pump the brakes. Like, we're not disrespecting anyone and we're not out of order. And I was talking to the wife of the couple the other day, and I don't want to get too much into details, but their children go to a Catholic school, and the oldest one is confused as to why the Catholic people are so into Mary. And so I was like, I can tell her. You want me to tell her? I can tell her. You want me to tell her? I can tell her. And she was like, well, what are you gonna tell her? And I told her, and she was like, oh. I was like, uh-huh. I can tell her. You want me to tell her? I will tell her why. Like, I got the truth ready. But that's where we are now. We the crazy Hebrew friends. We ready.
Yeah.
We got the truth locked and loaded.
Yeah, and that's good too. I and that was another motivation too for me starting this, so that people will, because a lot of times when you're new to something, you can have something in your head, but it's sometimes difficult to express it when you're new, because you've never done it before. And so I wanted to create a platform where people had information and they could say, well, I really can't explain it well, but here, listen to this and tell me what you think. And then you could always use me as the crazy guy. Well, yeah, that was a little crazy what he said, but what you think about this other part over here, And so just go on with that, because I know I'm for someone who's just getting in, some of the things that we talk about just kind of out there. But so use me as the out there guy, but send them information and just say, But what do you think about this, or or what you think about that, to get a conversation started? So that's one of the reasons I started doing some of the things to help people, have something to give, or have something to defend, help them to defend their position. I hope that makes sense, because it was, especially when I was on Facebook and I started posting those pictures and all that stuff, all those pictures. I mean, it just really helped a lot of people out, because they were able to show other people, hey, I'm not crazy. These are some pictures from, 1400s, and it gives them ammunition, it gives them some support to be able to give out information. All right, I don't know who's next, Earl or Henry. We'll go with Earl. All right.
Good evening, Elder. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I got you.
All right. First of all, I want to let you know that we're praying for your strength also. I can see you. I can feel your spirit. And another thing I want to say is tell your wife, thank you for sharing you with us. It's been a blessing and a growing period in our lives. But I want to, this lesson, the last lesson and the lesson before that, this scripture has been popping up in my brain, and it's like, this got to be out. But it's Revelations 12:4. It says, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of the heavens and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered for the devour her son or her child as soon as it was born. And that keep popping up. I keep thinking it's her son, but it is her son. It's his word being devoured. It's or trying to be devoured. The thing is, when we come up, we're already in tradition and we're trying to get out of it. But look how long it took to get to that point, to where we're waking up to get out of that box that we're put in tradition. What we don't know what the tradition is for anyway. We do it because we were told to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the tradition and the movements of the church, and not sure exactly what it all means. Some of it may be in, some of it may be out of the word. But the word, far as being the Son of God and his word, man, we've been waking up and learning and growing, and it's like we're being uncovered. But it's because, I mean, this just keeps the dragon ways to devour. And I don't know if I have the knowledge to bring this out, whereas get in my heart, the exposure, because everything gets covered up. His word, I mean, to the point that we're not going to do what we ought to do. We're going to do what we've been doing. It's that much covered up.
Is that much covered? Mm-hmm. And now it's more meaning to what when we read scripture, he said, work out your own salvation.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? Because it goes back to what the word you're using, the uncovering. That's what working out our own salvation means, to continue to uncover the truth.
Yes, sir.
And then when we find it, we begin to walk in it.
Yes, sir.
And we save more and more of ourselves every time we cast off a lie.
See, yes, sir.
We get more reward, we get more glory, we get more a closer relationship with him every time he exposes or shows a lie, and we uncover the truth against it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's exactly what you're saying.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was wondering, because as soon as you uncover the truth, then you encounter resistance, not from those who don't know him, but those who do claim to know him.
Mm-hmm.
So then am I doing right? You may have a period of doubting yourself or whatever, but
Yeah.
like you said, we got to have a confirmation.
Yeah, I mean, in the book of Romans, Paul was talking about this. He was saying that even Israel, he said, a remnant of Israel is going to wake up, but the part of Israel that's not going to wake up is going to be an enemy to the gospel.
See, yeah.
Yeah, y'all get what I'm saying? Even Israel, the elect, the ones who are called, the ones who are chosen, the one he's going to bring in later, are an enemy.
Wow.
To the gospel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's so we encounter each other that's acting as an enemy, but we one day become friends. Then we run into the world system that we encounter that's an enemy that wants to stay in power. And so we've got all these enemies surrounding us. But he's saying walk in truth. You don't have to.
And I was holding that question for I guess 3 lessons. And I was saying to myself, the only bad question is one that has not been asked.
Because it's the enemy trying to get you not to ask. Yeah.
See, and when the young lady talked about rejecting the truth, that was the button that pushed that got me going. So I had to ask. And I thank her and I thank you.
Yeah, man. Ask the questions. I mean, if it's so crazy that it's embarrassing, you just let me know. We'll cut it out. We'll cut it out the tape. But ask the question.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. All right, Henry.
I just wanted to make this comment that you are an extreme blessing. And I still go back to the time that you did the Negroland series, because that's when I first actually met you on this. And I think when I first heard it, I was up 2 straight days trying to process the stuff that you was telling. And you did a great job in each one of them. It's like you left a cliffhanger after the first lesson. Even though the first lesson was long, I was waiting for you to come out with the next one. So whenever it came out. But I learned so much from you in that week than I did my whole time being in the Baptist church. So, I thank Yah for you and what you brought out. You just don't know how much you have changed not only my life, but the people around them. And you had a significant impact on the decisions that I make going forward. And I go back and I check to make sure that it's in line with Torah before I make a decision, because I don't want to go past that. But there were some challenges within your friends and your family, feeling like you're going to be ostracized by everyone. But then what ended up happening is you find a lot more, not only in your local area, but outside, within the United States and different states, and also outside of it, that you find yourself not alone. So my thing is that whatever the Most High has led on you, you continue to do that. But I don't know what else to say as what you've offered, the power that you brought out with the knowledge and what you study. So just want to say you are a blessing and thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. All praises to the Most High. I appreciate it. Al?
Yeah, Elder Schroeder. So I had 2 questions. The first question, so that group that Paul was talking about, was he talking about at that time, or like, I guess what is that, the context of that scripture? Because I was gonna ask, who are the 5 foolish virgins? Just one more time. I know you've answered that a million times. And then the second question I had was a little unrelated, but it didn't look like anyone else's hands are up. So I was gonna ask, who are the 144,000? That was the 2 questions that's been on my mind.
All right. So Paul, in context of that, he was talking about, he was trying to warn the Gentiles in that in Romans about being arrogant because they were being grafted in. All right. And he was trying to tell them that Israel is still significant, that Israel is Yah's chosen people. And he was saying that there's a remnant of Israel that's going to be brought in, early, but there's going to be a large portion that's not. But he was warning the Gentiles not to be arrogant because, Yah has not forgotten Israel. That's, matter of fact, he using you, Gentiles, to make Israel jealous. His whole plans get Israel back. All right, so in context, but he was saying there's a time period where there's that remnant that hadn't accepted him, which could be equated to the five foolish. They're not going to believe the gospel, and they're going to be an enemy to the gospel because they don't believe it. And so you see that today. A lot of us are don't believe in Yeshua. We argue against these type things. And so they become an enemy, for Yah's sake. But he was saying even those will at some point be grafted back in. And he warned the Gentiles, he says, so don't make the same mistakes that they made. Because the same way he took that original branch off and grafted you in, he can take your branch off in the same way. So he was warning the Gentiles, don't get arrogant about Israel. So that's the context of that one. As far as the 144,000, who are they? Well, I mean, when for the most part, when the harvest, it looks like the barley harvest is about over, and he gets ready to start focusing on Israel, he sends out 144,000, 12,000 men from each tribe of Israel to begin to set the record straight on the true gospel. And they're going to go out and preach the pure gospel as it is written, as it is prophesied to Israel to help get that doctrine right. And so they're going to minister what is going to appear to be like 49, 50 years. And they're going to be the only ones that's anointed to go out and do that during that time. But they're going to be of the nation of Israel. It's not going to be the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not, all that. He's got 12,000 from each tribe that he's going to pick. And in Book of Revelation, he names those tribes. The only tribe that he doesn't pick from is Dan, and he puts Joseph back in to take Dan's place.
Now, are these men physical virgins, or is that like a spiritual? Is there a symbolism there?
No, I think they're actual virgins. I think they're going to start young. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like 13 years old, 14 years old when they start the ministry. Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
And man, I'm gonna be praying for you. As the elder said earlier, I can see, that you look like you need rest. So I'm gonna pray that Yahusha stops by and gives you that rest. Shalom.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I had we've been friends a long time, and we had talked Saturday. Last Saturday, talked twice. He called me. I had to get off the phone after a long while, and then I called him back. And that was last Saturday, and then I got a call Monday that he was gone, and it just kind of threw me off a little bit. But that's when we had to depend upon the faith, you know what I'm saying? So this is not, this is the beginning, not the end, like Martha, Mary was crying. He said, no, he said, why are y'all so upset? I am the God of the resurrection, so, And we had to, you know, it's okay to mourn and grieve, but we can't grieve and mourn like others who have no hope. Yeah, I get what I'm saying, because we do. But he was a good friend. So, all right. Any other questions, comments? All right, Lita.
So I've been like, put my hand up and put my hand back down, put my hand up. But I just wanted to say thank you for this word today, because I was literally, yesterday I had what ended up being an argument with somebody really close to me about them not seeking. And it's very heartbreaking, I guess, watching people, I guess even those that you admire for so long, and kind of looked up to, when it comes to their faith walk and things like that. And it just kind of watch them, their their I guess angst and eagerness kind of dwindle away from seeking the Most High. But in their minds, they think that they're in what is known as perfection, and it's heartbreaking, because I'm like, and I think I ended up leaving a conversation as, listen, I'm, I'm going into prayer for you, but I hope that you can go into prayer and just ask for exposure, right? And to be stretched and so you can open your eyes to know y'all more. But so I'm glad that you said that. And I'm glad that you touched on so many points. And I'm sitting here listening like, oh my, yes, that's it, Kendall, that's it. So I just want to say thank you for this message today. It really spoke to me. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. And just like I said, well, you know, scripture says, don't grow weary in well doing. You know, so when he says stuff like that, that means that it's so, you can get so close to getting weary when you're doing good things. You know what I'm saying? So so much so that he has to remind us, don't grow weary. And that makes sense. So, so yeah, that means when we do these things, just stay prayerful and stay mindful that things don't have to happen instantly, but trust Yah for this person or these people, that he's going to do his work in them. And it's just not in the time frame that we would like to see it, but he's going to do his work in them. And that's why that's where I get my hope from, is knowing that he's going to do it. Yeah. And so I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to take tribulation period. I don't know what it's going to take. Will it take some going to the lower parts of the earth? What is it going to take? But at the end of the day, he's faithful. So continue to lift him up in prayer, and that's the main thing. All right, Al, you have something else?
Yeah, I'm sorry to do this to you, Elder, but and maybe this is a question that might be better for a future session, but what does it really mean to be grafted in to Israel? What does that mean for the Gentile, and what does that mean for the Israelite?
Well, I mean, well, like the scriptures we read earlier, you know, you have the same opportunity as anybody else when you get grafted in. Now, whether or not, you know, people take advantage of that opportunity, it's a different story. But that means you get grafted into the same root, with the same root. You have the same opportunity, the same word, the same flow, the same food that come from the root. So it's like you become one family, you know. But as you can see, you know, everybody's not taking advantage of that, and so guess what? Branch is gonna get removed.
So does that Gentile become an Israelite? Like, is it a citizen of Israel? Do they actually like? And because I know that there's some confusion. I know the term spiritual Israel exists. I feel like the concept comes from the grafting in, you know, talk in scripture.
Yeah, I've never heard or read in the scripture where anybody outside of Israel becomes Israel. I never heard that. You know, it always talks about, being grafted into, the same faith like, as Abraham's seed. They consider Abraham's seed, but not Israel. Israel is a different group. So either you're Israel or you're not. You don't get grafted into becoming Israel. You become part of the group or the body, but Israel is in and of itself Israel. But you can become, the seed of Abraham. You're considered the seed of Abraham if you accept Yah by faith.
So is that the concept of many parts, one body?
Yes, that's the way I see it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hope that makes sense. But we'll, if we need to delve more into it at some point, we can. But Israel is
Okay.
Israel.
Okay, so what? Okay, sorry, I hate to do this to you. This is the last one. So what about, for instance, Esau or Moab, which are tribes that the Most High has said he's going to root them out and he's going to finish them off the face of the earth? Can somebody from those tribes still be grafted in under the promise to Abraham?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think that every one out of those, have been discarded. When he talks about it, as people, as a nation, then that the majority of those will not make it. But he always has one or two, or I don't know, 10. I don't know how many he chooses from each nation. And then so when you start reading even the book of Enoch and you start reading the other books, and he starts talking about the left side and the right side and all these things, he said even some from the left side will be grafted in. So that, that's giving us all the clues. So I can't say all the descendants of Esau are doomed. Can't say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Elder.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I think if we take into account Romans 11, that'll verify your statement there. All of the Gentiles that are being grafted in, they serve a purpose. And when all the Gentiles who have been designated to serve his purpose have actually served that purpose, then the number of Gentiles that are going to be grafted in is going to cease. So think about it in terms of his purpose, and anybody can serve a purpose of the Most High.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of putting it. And two, when you start talking prophetically and looking at pictures and shadows and types, and you kind of want to see, okay, well, how looking at maybe the other nations versus Israel, how did that play out? And you look at Noah, and you see how many pairs of clean animals went on the boat versus those of the unclean. And you can kind of get a ratio of how many people of the house of Israel is going in versus the other nations. All right, so it's just it's a prophetic picture. He don't give us those pictures for nothing. That's why when he was talking to Peter, and Peter was seeing, and when he had his vision, he was seeing the clean and the unclean. He said, "I'm not going to do that." He was pointing to the Gentile nations when he was talking about the unclean animals, right? And so when you go back to Noah and you impose that up on the prophetically, then you can see the statistics there of who's going on to the ark. So you basically had 7 pairs of clean versus like a pair of the unclean animals. It wasn't as many unclean animals as going on as the clean. So, all right, no other comments? All right, well, let's continue to keep everybody in prayer. Keep Judy in prayer. And we can continue to keep Julie in prayer. She has surgery. I think it's the 12th, May 12th. So keep her keep them lifted up. And so I know there's people with other things going on as well. So, you know, we you know, you all, as somebody comes to your mind or y'all have your group discussions, just keep each other lifted up. You know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going to continue to go on. More things are going to happen. And so we just had to keep the faith. You know, we can't allow our circumstances to cause us to become offended. In other words, cause us to begin to distrust in the one in whom we ought to trust and obey. All right. All right, Father, we just want to thank you for being you. We want to thank you for giving us the opportunity. We want to thank you for being a help in a time of trouble. You know, we want to thank you for being there when we need you, for being a comfort, for being a friend, for being encouraging, for being a warrior on our behalf, fighting off the enemies. We want to thank you for being the ultimate perfect sacrifice without spot and blemish. We want to thank you for going to the A to the Z for us and doing all things so that we might have the availability and the possibility of having a relationship with you. We just want to thank you, Father, for your long suffering, for continuing with us, striving with us, so that we might have the opportunity. So, Father, forgive us for the many times we have ignored the opportunity, that we have spurned off your calls, that other things were more important. But Father, we want to thank you for opening up our eyes and our ears so we might begin to put things in the proper perspective by the Holy Ruach that you gave us, by your grace and by your mercy. So we want you to be with everybody here today, their family members. We ask for a hedge of protection around everybody so that we can have our eyes and our ears open wide to your will. Thank you once again for being you. In your son Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. All right. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
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 Praise